Hello again. Welcome back. All right, so this is video 2. This is going to describe part 2 and part 3 of structure and function of reptiles, okay? So in part 2, you are remembering those adaptations. Remember, adaptations are especially essential to an ecological role, which is what we're trying to understand, because I'm going to snap back to our standards. Remember, we're trying to construct explanations to relate structure and function of animals, specifically reptiles right now, to ecological roles. We're doing that by including our morphological, physiological, and behavioral adaptations. So don't forget what we're doing this for, okay? So at this point, you made a table. If you don't know what this is, go back to video 1. Otherwise, you're down here in part 2. Okay, now you are trying to make sense of what you just wrote in this table. All right, so for this section, you are trying to determine taking a 3, 2, 1 method for the adaptations. Okay, so you're trying to determine 3 morphological adaptations. Remember, those are structures. Okay, those are like scales and lungs and hair, but obviously not hair because reptiles don't have hair. Please don't write that. And then for 2, you're coming up with 2 behavioral adaptations, 2 of them. So 2 things that reptiles do to help them survive. Remember, that's an adaptation. And then 1 physiological adaptation. Okay, so remember, physiological is something that's chemical. It's something that you may or may not be able to see in the organism from the outside. Okay, so you may be able to see a snake eating an organism, but on the inside, there's lots of chemical reactions going down inside of the snake. Okay, so the inside stuff is that physiological adaptation. That's why I'm only asking for 1, because it's pretty complicated stuff. All right, but you guys have answered it before. Remember when we talked about hagfish? They were all slimy and gross. That was a physiological adaptation. That was a chemical reaction. Snakes might have venom, or the way that they eat their food. Okay, so these are adaptations. Okay, and then I want you to answer, how do these adaptations help the organism survive? Okay, so we know that adaptations come about because they're trying to help the organism survive. But I want to know how. How are these specific adaptations that you chose helping this organism that you looked at? Remember, it could be any of those 3 that you talked about. How are they helping the organism survive? All right. If you get down and you're like, I literally have no idea, or you have 1, 2, and 3, or you're missing some adaptations here, great, that's fine. Go to this video, watch characteristics of reptiles. I know it's a little bit silly, it's a little bit kiddish, but it has characteristics, it has adaptations that we're looking for, okay? You can compare your answers to the answers on this video, okay? And you can see, did you get all the adaptations from the video? Were you missing some? Do you need to add to your notes? Remember, we're writing all this down in our journal. So do you need to add to it? Maybe. Okay, so that is part 2, all right? Then in part 3, you are trying to understand a part, not the whole, a part of a reptile's ecological role. Okay, so that's what you're doing for part 3. Remember, the ecological role is called a niche. And niche is made up of 4 things. 4 things, people, 4 things. We talked about this multiple times. I know you remember, just got to dig deep. Okay, so the 4 things are what an organism eats, what eats an organism, how an organism interacts with other organisms, and how an organism cycles nutrients. Okay, those are the 4 parts of a niche, of an ecological role. Now, at this point, you should definitely know what some reptiles eat. Remember, this is on your table. Look at your food section. Okay, so you should know that. You might know how they interact with each other. And at this point, you probably don't know how they cycle nutrients unless you did like the Komodo dragon, then you know. Otherwise, you probably don't. Okay, so what I'm asking here is for you to consider what you've already seen and answer these 2 questions, just to the best of your ability. Don't freak out if you don't have all the right answers. Everything is going to be okay. All right, you got it.